We're joined now by John Malcolm, Vice President for the Institute for Constitutional Government and the Director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation. John compiled a list of nominees that President Trump used to develop his first short list when filling the vacancy left by Justice Antonin Scalia. Thanks for joining us once again, sir. You know, we've learned about her wonderful family over the weekend. You called her an exacting scholar in your latest piece for Heritage. What kind of jurist would America be getting if she is confirmed?
Oh, she's brilliant. I was delighted to be there on Saturday at the White House when the announcement was made, and I was particularly heartened to hear her say, look, I clerked for Justice Scalia. He was an originalist and a textualist. That was his judicial philosophy, and that is mine, too. And she has certainly proven that, certainly through her academic writings over the years, but also in the opinions that she's issued in her 3 years on the Seventh Circuit. I mean, she is brilliant. When she graduated from Notre Dame Law School, at some point Antonin Scalia sent one of her professors a letter saying, or said, look, can you give a letter of reference for Amy Coney Barrett? He said he gave a one-sentence reference saying, she is the greatest student I have ever had. And Scalia hired her, and she has certainly not been a disappointment.
What kind of impact do you think that she will? She's going to get confirmed. The Democrats can't stop this. So when she is on the high court, the lives of everyday Americans, how conceivably could she impact them in a positive way?
Well, from my perspective, it's certainly in a positive way. I mean, this is the most consequential in terms of a change in philosophy from one justice to another since Thurgood Marshall was replaced by Clarence Thomas. So, look, the court is very evenly divided. It is a right-leaning court, but in any given case, one of the so-called conservative Supreme Court justices can be peeled away and vote with the so-called liberal bloc on the court to deliver a victory for the liberal bloc. All of the conservative justices have done that at one time or another, most prominently Chief Justice Roberts. Well, if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed, the liberal bloc of Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan could peel away one of the so-called conservative justices, but you would still have a 5-4 majority for the conservative position.
No, I understand that. And then what tangible ways could that impact Americans? We would have more liberty, more freedom, less government intrusion in our lives. For example, Obamacare's main tenet, you brought up Chief Justice John Roberts and the verbal jujitsu he had to do after 2 years of them telling us it wasn't a tax, then John Roberts magically waves his magic gavel and all of a sudden it's a tax. She wouldn't be inclined to do that. She would be inclined to apply the law and say, yeah, it's not permissible for the government to tell its people they have to undertake commerce. Yeah,
so Amy Coney Barrett, in fact, in a law review article, criticized the chief for his, what she said was a bad textualist reading of the Obamacare Act. There is going to be an Obamacare case argued before the court later this term, so she certainly will not offer any suggestions as to how she would rule in that case. There are different legal arguments. But look, she is an originalist and a textualist, and what that means is that she will apply the law as written, whether it is a statute or whether it is the words and phrases in the Constitution, and she will apply those documents based on how they were understood at the time either that the statute was passed or the constitutional provision was ratified.
Yeah, and you know what? Expand on the originalist, textualist definition. That word, those two words have been thrown out a lot at folks, and they may be struggling to actually wrap their heads about what that person means as opposed to what somebody like Ruth Bader Ginsburg is like.
Sure. So a living constitutionalist will say, well, these words are malleable, so I can pour modern values into these words and effectively amend the Constitution under the guise of interpretation rather than using the amendment process that is called for in the Constitution itself. An originalist says, no, the Constitution was a compact between the people and the government about what power the three branches of the federal government should wield, what power the state should wield, and what power should be left to the people to decide. And I will interpret those words and phrases based on how those words were understood at the time those provisions were ratified, not with a modern lens of how I might otherwise like to interpret those words.
Simply put, no legislating from the bench. Yes. Hey, Mr. Malcolm, we always appreciate the time here on the Chris Salcedo Show, sir. Come back.